Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the 20th of December, Christmas week. Christmas is very much upon us. It's the week that everybody does all of their last minute running round, unless you are of course an extremely organised person. I am not an extremely organised person, so to say last minute running round would probably be an understatement, to be honest with you. I've got pretty much everything to do over the course of the next 5 days, so it's going to be a little bit of a manic few days for me, but I do it every year. I always tell myself every year, do you know what? No, this year I'm going to have it done by November, and I'm going to have it done by, the end of November, so I can stay relatively stress-free and watch the Christmas films and listen to the Christmas songs and be in a great mood, whereas now, like every year, I haven't done that. And now every time a Christmas song comes on, it reminds me of another present that I need to buy, or another thing I need to wrap, or another thing I need to book in before Christmas. It's just an extremely busy time of the year, but extremely blessed that, we are at this time of the year, the time for happiness and celebrations, etc. Before we get into today's live stream, we are going to talk about the latest Everton news and rumours, of course, because there still isn't a great deal happening. But before we get into any of that, I want to know, what's your favourite Christmas film and what's your favourite Christmas song? I feel like this is a very telltale sort of sign of a person, dependent on their favourite film and favourite song at this time of year. For me, I think Fairy Tale in New York is my favourite song, just because it's a bit, I was going to say rogue then, which rhymes with Pogues, which would have been quite ironic considering we're talking about music. But no, I just think it's a little bit different. It's not the typical cringy sort of Christmas song, which I like as well. But yeah, that's my favourite Christmas song. Favourite Christmas films, The Grinch. I think it's unbelievable. I think it's absolutely amazing. I am partial to Home Alone. I think the Home Alone films are world class as well. The Die Hard, Die Hard 1 is a Christmas film for a start, and it is also an amazing film. So I'm going to go with The Grinch and Fairy Tale in New York. I want to know your favourite Christmas films and songs before we even get into talking about Everton. But we are going to talk about Everton because Everton are back. We sat here last week and we spoke about England being knocked out of the World Cup, and that effectively meaning that, the run-up to, or the countdown, to Everton's return was very much upon us, because obviously the only Everton players left in the tournament were Conor Cody and Jordan Pickford, and once England were knocked out last weekend, that pretty much meant that we could solely focus on Everton now and, get back to remembering, where Everton are in the table and the form that Everton have been on, and get back to really hating football, I suppose I should say. No, but obviously the World Cup has now finished over the last week. Argentina obviously winning the whole thing. Lionel Messi winning his first World Cup. Absolutely unbelievable scenes in Buenos Aires and various other parts of Argentina, and obviously fantastic scenes over in Qatar with Messi, holding the trophy and really solidifying himself for me as the greatest of all time. Okay, sure, there might be more athletic footballers, there might be footballers that people prefer, there might be better goal scorers, but realistically, I don't think there's many people that could sit there and disagree that I think there's a lot of things that Maradona or Pele or Cristiano Ronaldo or, anybody else you want to throw in that conversation. There's a lot of things that they do that are absolutely out of this world, and you just look at them and you just think, wow, that is unbelievable. But you also look at the things that those players can do and could have done, obviously, and you sort of think, yeah, Lionel Messi could do that. But there's things that Lionel Messi does with a football that I look and I just think there's not a human being on this planet. There never has been a human being, and there probably will never be another human being on this planet that can do what he can do with a ball. So I'd be lying if I was to say it wasn't quite, it wasn't, I wouldn't say I was happy. That's probably a bit of an overstatement, but I was joyous to see him lift the trophy and really sort of put the cherry on top of the icing of what has been obviously an unbelievable career for me, the greatest we'll ever see in this game that we all know and love. But obviously that situation, that cherry on the top of the icing on the cake for Lionel Messi's career was the crash back down to earth for all of us Evertonians on the realisation that football, the return of Premier League football, is now well and truly upon us. And as we said last week when we spoke about some of the transfer rumours and we spoke about some of the things that are going on in the space at the moment, transfers and contractual news and all sorts of bits of Everton stuff will continue to sort of creep up now, and there'll be a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more as each day goes on, of course, as we get closer to the return of the Premier League. Boxing Day, of course, is Everton's first game back. Wolves at Goodison Park, a must-win game, even though obviously we haven't played a Premier League game of football for, a month and a half, something like that. It still doesn't take away the importance of this game. Wolves are in really bad form. Again, obviously, there's been a massive break, so you have to take that into consideration. But before the break, Wolves weren't in very good form whatsoever. Everton ourselves, of course, not in very good form whatsoever as well. And, given that things aren't necessarily looking exciting between now and the end of the season, this is a game that Everton seriously have to win and have to go out and win and should go out and win. Really, interestingly enough, last time we done a live stream, we sat and we spoke about Matthias Cunha, who'd been linked to Everton and been linked with a potential January move. And, ironically, Matthias Cunha at the time had also been linked with Wolves, but it was sort of in the air that Everton were testing the waters with it. I did say on that live stream that it may just be a case of his agent trying to come out and throw Everton's name in the hat to try and give Wolves a little bit of a kick up the arse to get the deal over the line. It does seem like that deal is over the line. I think Fabrizio Romano tweeted about an hour ago that he signed his contract or agreed the terms or whatever he'd done. But he's going to Wolves, basically. So anybody that wanted Matthias Cunha in January, it ain't happening. He's going to Wolves. As I said in the live stream last week, I wasn't too fussed, to be honest with you. Could he have improved Everton? Probably. But that isn't a big feat at the moment. Would he have been worth the risk and the money that we'd have had to spend on him? I'm not so sure. But we have got Everton news. We have got Everton rumours. We have got stuff to talk about. We have got bits and bobs to delve into. Some big news regarding contacts. Chris Bascom, who is a Merseyside football reporter for The Telegraph. So this is coming from The Telegraph, who are notoriously quite reliable sources, which was definitely worth paying attention to. Chris has said that Anthony Gordon and Alex Iwobi are both close to signing a new Everton contracts. Now, this is news that I always find contractual news quite humorous, really, and not in the sense of that it's humorous that these two players are signing new contracts, but I remember 10 or 15 years ago when I was growing up and before I sort of understood football and the way in which football worked, and before I really had any understanding of football as a business. Football to me when I was growing up was just the sport that I loved. Everton were the team that I loved, and anything that happened within that was every opinion and every thought I had was based off of the emotion of Everton Football Club. It was before I knew how football worked. It was before I'd really gotten an understanding that this is a business. The players, most of them don't really give a fuck. They're just there because it's their job. The managers, most of them don't really give a fuck. They're just there because of its job. And above all, it's a business. The sport is secondary now because of the money that is in it. So, when I was growing up, when I was, say, 10, 11, 12, whatever, however old you want to say, if I'd have read this news, maybe not this exact news because it's, maybe it's, again, it's not exactly like we're sitting here talking about two players that, are absolutely pivotal to Everton. I mean, Alex Iwobi is at the moment, but obviously historically that hasn't been the case. But you'd read contract news about players and you'd get excited. It'd be like, oh my God, so-and-so signing a new contract at Everton, so-and-so are committing their future to Everton Football Club. This is happening. It's dead exciting. It's really exciting news. Whereas the minute you actually understand how football works and the fact that football is a business and the fact that everything is done for the benefit of earning money or making money or protecting an asset, then this news becomes an awful lot less exciting. So when I read this news, there wasn't any amount of excitement within me whatsoever. There wasn't any amount of happiness, or it was just a case of, oh, that's interest, and that again means that Everton are protecting their assets, but and maybe also a reward to both players. I think more so Alex Iwobi. Now, I do want to touch on Alex Iwobi because he very certainly is a player that I think everybody amongst the Everton fan base is appreciative of, and I don't think you would find one Evertonian that would that would sit there and say that they've been disappointed with Alex Iwobi recently, but I do think you would find a lot of Evertonians that would sit there and tell you they didn't believe he deserved a new contract, and certainly not a new contract, on the figures that are being touted. Now, obviously, we don't know those figures, so I'm not going to sit here and say, Iwobi getting a blah-blah contract on this amount a week is a disgrace. He's only had a good 6 months, because this hasn't been put out there. If we'd have had that information, then we could discuss it, but we haven't got that information. But yeah, again, I read this news and the first thing I thought was protecting the asset. It's very clear that Everton are going to have a lot of traction around certainly Anthony Gordon over the next 12 months or so. Now, what I do find really interesting is the Anthony Gordon contract situation being discussed as if it's, as if Anthony Gordon's going to sign a new deal at Everton over the next few weeks or so, or few months or so. That obviously will take us into either, very close to or in the middle of the January transfer window. Is it likely Anthony Gordon will sign a new contract and leave the football club in the same window? I'm not so sure. That isn't something that happens an awful lot. Does it mean that it's beyond the realms of possibility? Absolutely not, but it isn't something that happens an awful lot. And whilst I think Anthony Gordon signing a new deal at Everton Football Club has absolutely zero indication on whether or not he's going to be here for the long run, I do think it is very much a case of maybe giving him a little bit more money a week to, I don't know, a bit of a bonus for what he did at the end of last season, but more importantly, protecting the asset, maybe throwing a release clause in there and making sure that if he is then to leave the football club, he leaves on our terms and for what we want for him, rather than what Chelsea wants or Tottenham wants. I don't think it's any sort of shock or any question that Anthony Gordon probably would prefer one of those moves away from the football club. I think he'd come out quite openly, to be honest with you, and say and said in the media after he'd stayed at the football club in the summer, he come out and said it wasn't like I was forced to stay at the football club. I love this football club. In other words, he effectively come out and said, listen, I'm happy to be here. I want to be here. I wasn't forced to be here, but I wouldn't have minded the move if I'd have got one. So I don't think that is going to change. And to be honest with you, again, I don't think you'll find many Evertonians that would sit here and staunchly, stand in the way of a move for Anthony Gordon if the money was right. So the Anthony Gordon one is simple. It makes sense. It's Everton protecting the asset. It's Everton effectively saying, sign a new contract, get your head down. I would assume work hard for the next few months, and then, if one of these teams that are said to still be interested, Chelsea or Tottenham or whoever it is, come in again in the summer, then we can get what we want, you can get your move, and, everybody's a winner. It is interesting, because I think the fact that, I think it slightly overlooks this transfer window. Now, again, Everton might say, that's nonsense, we're signing him to a new contract because we want him to be here. Frank Lampard might say, no, I believe in him, I believe in his ability. He's had a bit of a rough few months, but I want him to be here for the long run. It's got nothing to do with selling him. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that or believe that to be the case. But what I do think is really interesting is the point that I made before about Anthony Gordon signing a new contract and then being sold in the space of, a couple of weeks of signing that new deal. It just seems quite unlikely for me. It's not impossible, and I wouldn't put it past, the club, and I certainly wouldn't begrudge the club for it, because if we can sign him to a new contract, protect the assets, and guarantee we get more for him because he's on a new contract and a bigger deal, and then still manage to get to sell him in the same window, if that was the plan anyway, then, maybe that's the best deal. I'm not by any sense of the imagination saying that Everton had absolutely confirmed that they want to sell Anthony Gordon and that's the decision and that's why this is happening. I'm just using different scenarios. It very much well be that Frank Lampard might say, no, do you know what? I put my trust and I put my faith in you, and I want you to be the leader of Everton Football Club, and I want you to be Everton's captain in the next 3 or 4 years. So I'm giving you the new contract. What you need to do now is put the last couple of months behind you, put all of the transfer topic behind you, get your head down, work hard, and show you want to play for this football club. There might have been a complete change of mindset from Anthony Gordon. He might have now looked and went, well, I wouldn't have minded the move in the summer, but now I'm here, I want to stay here, and I want to stay here for the future. I don't know. The reality is I believe Everton is still a little bit hamstrung with financial fair play and a little bit hamstrung with our ability to go out and sign players freely without the need to sell assets. And Anthony Gordon at the moment is, for me, and this is just my opinion, Anthony Gordon at the moment for me is the asset that Everton should be looking at to move on because he's young, he's got potential. He hasn't really lit the world on fire, and he hasn't made any of us turn around and go, "Oh my God, he's irreplaceable, he's unbelievable." But he's young, he's got potential, and he could go for a high price. Now, if Bill Kenwright or Denise Barrett-Baxendale, or no, forget them two, actually, I don't want them two anywhere near my space. If Kevin Farwell or Frank Lampard were to sit down with me and say, we don't need to sell Anthony Gordon or Jordan Pickford or anybody to go and sign players in January. We can go and sign a striker in January. We can go and sign a winger in January. We can go and sign a creative number 10 in January without the need to sell these players. Then sound, I've got no burning issue with keeping Anthony Gordon. I've got no burning issue with him. I don't dislike the lad. I don't think the lad's an awful footballer. And if we don't need to sell him and we can still go out and make the relevant changes that we need to make, then that's absolutely fine. Do I think that that's the case? And do I think that that's the current situation at Everton? No, I don't. I think the current situation at Everton is that if we are wanting to go and seriously improve this team, and I mean seriously improve this team in the sense of bringing in a goal scorer, which is a necessity in January, in the sense of bringing in a creative player, which is a necessity in January, and in the sense of bringing in a winger, a wide forward, which for me is a necessity in January. So that's 3 players that minimum for a decent player, if we get the recruitment spot on, is going to cost 20 odd million quid each. So that's 50-60 million quid on talent. Can Everton go and spend that in January without having to sell somebody else? I don't think we can. So that leaves your assets open. Then out of the assets that Everton have got that they could sell, who is the one that the club are most likely to get rid of that wouldn't have as big of an impact? There's not many. We haven't got many assets. We haven't got many of them. It's not like we're sitting here with a team of 12 players that we could pick through and go, well, we could sell him because he's not that old. We could sell him. We haven't got many of them. We've got Anthony Gordon because of his age and because he's likely going to sign this new deal. We've got Jordan Pickford off the back of a relatively successful World Cup. And by relatively successful, I mean he won the Golden Glove. He was joint with Emiliano Martinez and Bono of Monaco with 3 clean sheets. So he effectively won the Golden Glove. I know Martinez got it, and rightly so because he won the tournament, but he was joint with those players of winning that. So you got Jordan Pickford, you've got Anthony Gordon, you've got maybe Alex Iwobi, but again, I think there'll be a lot of teams around the world that would look at Alex Iwobi and think, well, okay, he's had a good few months and that's fine, and he's done well and he's worked hard, but the 4 years previous that were not subpar, not average, not okay, the 4 years before it that were absolutely horrendous, maybe enough to put them off. So you've got Pickford, you've got Gordon, who I think 2 that we could move on for money and would be seen as valuable assets. Calvert-Lewin, maybe, but is anybody going to take that risk given his injury record and how much Everton would want for him? I don't know. Ben Godfrey, again, maybe, but would people take that risk given he's been out injured for the last 6 months, 5 months, whatever it is? We haven't got many of these assets that Everton could move on in order to bring in funds to be able to reinvest in the squad. Anthony Gordon is the only real one at the moment that stands out for me, or Jordan Pickford. Selling a goalkeeper as good as Jordan Pickford, as reliable as Jordan Pickford, a goalkeeper who kept us in the Premier League last season at a time when it looks like we're going to be in another one of those situations where we're fighting for our lives, would be disastrous for me. I've seen some people say, well, sell Jordan Pickford and just put Begovic in there for the time being. Put it this way, I like Asmir Begovic. I've got nothing against him. He seems like a lovely fella, dead sound fella. Absolutely nothing against the fella whatsoever. If Everton had sold Jordan Pickford last January and put Asmir Begovic in goal, Everton would be playing Championship football now. It's as simple as that. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to agree with it or not, again, nothing against him, nothing personal. I like the fella. If this was that situation and Everton would have sold Jordan Pickford last January and put Asmir Begovic in goal and just said, well, just put Asmir Begovic in there for the time being, we would be playing QPR at the weekend. It's as simple as that. So if we were to sell Jordan, it would then not only require us going out and buying a striker, a winger, and a creative player, it would also require us going out and buying a replacement goalkeeper that could fit in and do his job. Now, I'm not saying that Everton shouldn't explore, the option of Jordan moving on if we get a ridiculous bid. If we get a bid that you look at and you go, that's far too silly to turn down, then yeah, you would look at it naturally. But it would have to be, for me, a ridiculous bid for Everton to even consider moving Jordan Pickford on, because it just adds another position to the list of positions that we need to bring in January. And for me, we cannot leave this January transfer window without a striker coming in who can score goals and without a creative player. We can't do that and then expect to stay up. We've lost Richarlison this season, so the goals he scored and the big moments he turned up in last season, they're gone. We can't afford to go the rest of the season with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's in and out because he's constantly injured, Neil Mowbray, who scored 1 goal all season and scored 1 goal for Brighton last season in the entirety of the season, and 3 wingers who are, I've got about as much consistency as my stomach after a bad curry. That was disgusting, but you get what I'm saying. The absolute, it's such a necessity that we go out and we bring in those forward players and those creative players in the January transfer window. And if Everton aren't going to be able to do that unless we sell an asset, then I think we have to be willing to try and move somebody like Anthony Gordon on. And I think him signing a new contract this close to a transfer window, I don't know whether that has an effect on it. I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But it, again, I don't know. Will teams be put off by that because they'll think, well, he's only just signed a new contract, so we'll just get him in the summer instead? I don't know. The Iwobi situation is interesting because, again, as I mentioned before, I don't think there's many Evertonians that would sit there and would have any sort of argument against the fact that Alex Iwobi has been our best player this season and has been our most improved player and has had a fantastic start to the season and is fairly faultless in what has happened to Everton this season. And even towards the back end of last season, he was very, very good, when Frank Lampard came into the football club. So I don't think you find many Evertonians that would sit there now and have a bad word about Alex Iwobi. That doesn't mean that that every Evertonian that will sit there and compliment Alex Iwobi, and every Evertonian that'll sit there and say he's done really well and he's being our best player would also sit there and say that is deserving of a new contract at the football club. Now, do I understand why Everton are offering Alex Iwobi a new contract? I do, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it is good for the player to be shown that the club and the manager are, ultimately impressed with him. His current contract runs until 2024, so he's still got, well over a year on his current deal. Again, I think the financial side of this situation is what is going to be the determining factor as to whether or not people are happy or not. I've seen some people go, the won't be getting a 200 grand a week contract because he's had a good 6 months. That's nonsense. He's not going to get a 200 grand a week contract, is he? Let's be honest. Because we had James Rodriguez on less than that. Not much less than that, but less than that. And we couldn't afford that, so we had to move him on. So Iwobi's not getting a 200 grand a week contract. Does that mean that the contract he gets will still be, too much in some people's eyes? Not necessarily, no. There'll still be some people who look and go, he doesn't deserve that, he's only had a good 6 months. But a contract for Iwobi, I think, whereas for Gordon, it may be more about protecting the asset. It may be more about guaranteeing that if he is to leave the football club, Everton are in the best position possible. I don't think that that's the case with Iwobi. I think Iwobi's is to reward him, to give him that confidence, to give him that, boost of, look at what happens when you do well, you get rewarded for it. And, people could say, well, he's had a 5-year deal, he's only done well for 6 months, why does that deserve a reward? This is football. Football, as I've just mentioned before, this isn't the real world. This isn't real life work where you perform badly in your job for 4 years and then you do a good few weeks and you get a bonus. That doesn't happen in the real world, but football isn't the real world. So, am I against the Iwobi getting a new contract? No, I'm not against them getting a boost there with a little bit more money and again, basically a pat on the back to say, listen, this is what happens when you perform. You get rewarded for it, so continue to perform, because I think that will only help him and his confidence. And as I said, it's not like we're talking about a player who's, been all right he's been our best player, let's be honest, over the course of the last sort of few months. So no real big issue with that. Obviously, if Everton go, yeah, we've given him £1 million a week contract, then I'll have a massive issue with it, but it's not going to be that serious. The Gordon one is a little bit more interesting, I think. I don't think the Iwobi's one as much of protecting the asset, but maybe, ultimately, when you give any player a new contract, you're protecting their asset, ultimately. And Everton might be looking at Iwobi thinking there'll be a lot of teams that need an energetic, quick, centre midfielder who can score goals, who's got quick feet, who's skillful, get him down to a new contract, and then if somebody does come in for him, we've got that to be able to look on. I don't know. But yeah, that's the contract news. For anybody that is new to the stream and doesn't know what I'm talking about, this is coming from The Telegraph, who have reported that Anthony Gordon and Alex Iwobi are both close to signing new Everton deals. We mentioned before, Jordan Pickford picking up the Golden Glove. Not really, because Martinez got it, but he did keep 3 clean sheets in the tournament, which was the same as Martinez and Bonu, and he done it in less games than both of them as well. So really, he should pick up the Golden Glove. But he won't, and he hasn't, because, look, Argentina won it, and Martinez was absolutely phenomenal in that penalty shootout and in every other penalty shootout that they had, to be fair, and he did make a wonderful save in extra time, although I do think he should have done better for every France goal, really. Even another penalties are penalties, and it's hard, but I think he should do better for the penalties, and I think he certainly should do better for Mbappe's second. But he won it, and I'm not bitter. But I'm just saying, Pickford got the same amount in less games. In other news, Solomon Rondon's left Everton, which is interesting. Look, there's absolutely nothing to say about this, is there, really? Rondon's left Everton. The club confirmed it a couple of days ago. He wasn't getting a look in anyway. He obviously didn't get a look in Australia, which I think was a big sort of telltale sign. And hopefully that is because Frank Lampard has looked at the likes of Tom Cannon and looked at a couple of the other young lads and thought, why am I giving a 33-year-old Rondon a chance when he's not going to be here in the summer anyway, when I can give somebody like a Tom Cannon a chance. He performed in Australia, done relatively well, scored a goal as well, and hopefully that means now that in Premier League games or Cup games, when Frank Lampard's looking to the bench, these young lads get an opportunity and get a chance to come on and show what they've show what they're capable of. In terms of Rondon, I have nothing against Rondon, to be honest. He stayed the ultimate professional. He was never a fan favourite, let's be honest. He never should have been at the football club. He never should have been brought to the football club. But he stayed the ultimate professional. He got his head down. He worked hard. And I don't think you'll find many Everton fans that'll hold any ill will towards Rondon. We all have the understanding that he was utterly atrocious and not good enough to play for the football club. And I know some people will say, well, he's getting paid 60 grand a week and he's awful. But, that again, what he was being paid and the contract he was given was nothing to do with him. That was what was given to him by, the previous regime and a manager that should have never been here in the first place. And again, that wasn't his fault. That was down to the board that put him in play. And again, getting back to the issue at Everton Football Club, which is the board and the way this football club is run. But we spoke about that a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I hold no ill will towards Rondon whatsoever. I wish him the best of luck in the future. Again, I thank him for his professionalism and the fact that he didn't ever spit his dummy and he just got his head down and he worked hard. And he seemed like somebody that was relatively liked amongst the dressing room and somebody that all the players got on with and respected and had a laugh with. So yeah, should he have left? He was going to leave in January anyway, so they may as well have left now. Hopefully it means that Tom Cannon maybe gets an opportunity on Boxing Day. Maybe he'll get an opportunity in the Cup against Man United. I don't know. And then the last bit of news I do want to talk about today is coming from Gary Al Smith of Sky Sports News, who was talking about Ghana in the World Cup and their performances, and specifically Mohamed Kudus. He said, for Ghana, the absolute star of this World Cup has been Mohamed Kudus, and we know that 3 Premier League clubs are interested, with Everton being the strongest. Look, again, just a repeat of the reports in the news that we heard all summer. Interesting to see who the other 2 Premier League clubs are, by the way, because, if it is somebody like a Liverpool who have been rumoured. I'm not just bringing Liverpool's name up for the sake of it. They've been sort of rumoured to be interested in him, or somebody like an Arsenal. It'll be interesting to see what Kudus himself wants to do in that situation. Does he want to go and play for a Liverpool or an Arsenal where he's unlikely to get game time and he's unlikely to get in their team, and he's pretty much in the situation he's in now that he wants to get out of? Or would he rather come and play for an Everton, or are the other two clubs, I don't know, a Newcastle or a West Ham, or, you know, clubs that he probably will get in and he will start in and are in a better position than Everton? Because if that's the case, if the other two clubs are Liverpool and Arsenal, then I've got much more confidence with him coming to Everton in that situation than if the other two clubs were West Ham and Newcastle. Because he's more likely to get in the Newcastle and West Ham teams, and they're in a better and a much safer position than what Everton are. Whereas with the sort of bigger clubs or the clubs near to the top, he might look at it and think, well, I'm not going to get in there, so I may as well go to Everton and have a couple of good years there, and then, see what happens and go from there. Look, it'd be an astonishing signing. I said it in the summer. Nothing's changed. It'd be an absolutely fantastic signing. Whether or not it happens, we will wait and see, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about this over the course of the coming weeks and months as well. Anyway, we are going to leave it there. B-Tune says, pardon me, just wants to drop in and say, got an exam tomorrow. I like the video. Is right, mate. Good luck with your exam. Good luck. Thank you very much. Home Alone 2 and Felice Navidad, says Bailey. Is right, Bailey. James says, all the best, Cam. Looking forward to your trenchant critiques during the rest of the season. That's what I'm here for, mate. Jason says, up the toffees, is right. So that was James that said that about the critiques. Carl says, my blood pressure has got to a stable level over the break, back to a dangerous level, I suppose. Yep. Yatesy says, how are you? I'm not too bad. Blue says, made up out of Iwobi, was worried he's going to run his contract down. Well, it doesn't end until 2024 anyway, so he'd still be here. He also says, more of a reward this. It's better for the club if our best player this season carries on playing for us, otherwise he'd be signing pre-contract with another club. Maybe. Matty Bush says, yes, Cam, good to see you back. Hope you're good. Can't wait for long. Gotta go. The walk-in. Done my back in work. Oh, sorry, mate. I hope you feel better soon, and I hope that it's nothing too serious, but thank you very much. Anyway, we are going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed it, please hit the like button. It does only take a second. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. We'll be back very shortly, so don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell notification as well, so you can join us whenever we are live or whenever a video does go up. But the countdown to Everton returning is truly upon us. Are we happy? Are we miserable? Are we worried? Are we stressed? Or do we just want to get back to Everton Football Club? Because let's be honest, as good as the World Cup was, or as exciting as it might have been at times, we're Evertonians, aren't we? Let's be honest. Anyway, big thank you for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you later.